We've got some.
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah. Let's go. So today's guests show the power of being hashtag table face. If you want to know what that is, go check out episode number 76. Either way, today's guest reached out to us, noticing we had lots of friends in common. We started talking and we knew he had to be on Content is Profit to share what he's done. Actually, correction. I actually added him as a friend.
Oh,
and then we started chatting. Yes, come on, Fonz. You didn't get the facts straight.
He told me the story wrong. He told me the story wrong, guys. But it doesn't matter. You know why? Because I'm actually super excited about this episode. And you know why? Because today's guest is someone that has built a successful company in an industry you won't even expect. But then he did what many would be afraid of doing. More on that later, guys.
He has launched a top 100 business and entrepreneurship podcast, the company that he built from the ground up. Is he award-winning what? Fonzie, my goodness. Hold on. He has launched a top 100 business and entrepreneurship podcast. He has a company that he built from the ground up. It's an award-winning one. No big. Oh, man.
Okay, I'm going to read this part because
you do it.
Clearly he didn't practice. Guys,
baby.
He has launched a top 100 business and entrepreneurship podcast, the company that he built from the ground up. It's an award-winning one. No biggie. And with over 10 years of experience in entrepreneurship, he has worked with clients that range from individuals to Fortune 500 companies. Woo! Oh, let's not forget that he's also an epic and proud father of two boys. That is so exciting, guys. Please welcome host of the Introspective podcast, Awesome Dad, and the Pivot Master, Mr. Jake Anderson! Let's go! Welcome, Jake.
How's it going, man?
It, guys. That intro was just on fire. I don't think I've ever had such an amazing introduction before. So I'm excited to be here on the show. I love what you're doing. I love just the chemistry that y'all have with each other on this podcast. And from one podcaster to another, just thank you for this opportunity. And I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you.
The honor is ours. We've heard since the moment that we announced that you were coming on the show, we've had so much feedback and support from the community, the people that know you, the people that share with you on a day-to-day. We actually have comments coming in. Jake, there we go. Thank you, Tony. And for those listening, guys, we actually broadcast live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So come hang out with us on the Beast Rules page. We have amazing guests just like Jake here. So, dude, tell us a little bit, who's Jake? I know that you love to share this story. So, dude, who's Jake? How did everything started with you on the entrepreneurship world? And then what are you doing right now?
Man, it's a story that every time I tell it, I try to find more ways to condense it because it's a lot of unpack after, since 2008, really, when I got started. And in fact, I bought a 1979 Winnebago and was going to live in it and write a business plan down in the mountains of Roanoke, Virginia. If you can't tell by the twang here, that's where I'm from. And so anyway, I got started in business. That was kind of the first step for me.
Yeah.
I ended up partnering with, he was an older gentleman, very successful, worked with a lot of country music artists out of Nashville into doing concert productions, which that was a 4-year partnership that actually didn't work out very well for me. It was really, there was a lot of mistakes that were made. But it led me into the special events industry, which is when I had my first big breakthrough in 2012. I launched an event lighting design company. In fact, my third event in lighting was for Universal Studios movie premiere night. So I was, it was like with 1,000 people. There were celebrities there, and I was designing this like underwater feel for this room. And it was my third event. So one thing I learned through that experience was that as long as you just take action, and just know that you can go into things with confidence and take action, you will deliver. You just have to believe in yourself. And ever since then, that was just a big mantra I carried with me. Well, fast forward, that was 2012. I realized that in really 2018 that I just wasn't really passionate anymore about special events. Like I just lost that passion. I started getting in the online space, and I just had developed a lot of success just in business entrepreneurship. I was able to scale out of the operations of that company. I actually moved 3 hours from the business. I had about a team of 18 people. We were working with, clients of all different sizes on their special events. And I just thought, well, what could I use with what I have to be able to kind of transition into this next chapter? So I started, I put my company up for sale. It's still like in due diligence right now. I probably shouldn't be saying this on the this is like sensitive information, but it's okay. Like it is. We're on the cusp of closing actually. Just a few things left. But
I was gonna say if you're interested, just like go get in touch with Jack. I think it's a good deal.
Yeah, there might be. Well, it's in the industry of large social gatherings.
Yeah.
And to sell a business during a global pandemic and large social gatherings is no easy feat. And dude, it was like right before. It was back in March. I was like about to close with this guy, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit and shut the country down, and the deal went off the table. And then fast forward, I was able to revive it, but it just the cost, like it pretty much cut my valuation in half. Wow. So like I had to like go back. I'm reinventing myself in online space, and really I've found just empowering entrepreneurs through human connection and building relationships and really focusing on their movement, right? That's when I got into podcasting and learning how to really break through hard choices and leveling up in business and life and empowering those relationships and scaling those movements with absolute clarity is really where I like to serve. Yeah. And that's where I'm at now. I just launched a new program recently. It's my first like signature offer, which is already halfway sold out. So yeah, man,
let's go.
It's been rocking and rolling.
Congrats, man. That is absolutely amazing. I love you. I think you're like an action taker, but by nature, what you were talking about. And when I found out that you were in this industry, right, like the special events industry, I found that so fascinating, and because personally, I don't know many people that go into the online space after being there. And I remember, so I was listening to a podcast that you were a part of, and you were saying that at first when you went into the online world, you were actually going to do something related to special events, right? Which I found super interesting because, of course, usually we try to help the people that, the path that we've walked. And I feel like is probably the natural response, hey, I'm going to help people that are trying to come into the special event space, but then you realize that's not your passion. And that's what I meant here in the intro where I'm like, he did something that a lot of people will be afraid of doing, which is pivoting completely, pretty much, right? Like, hey, it's totally okay. So what do you, like, first, I'm super curious, was there any fear in that transition, like that decision that you did right there? And if so, besides dealing with it, like, how do you think, what do you think led you to have this success that you're having right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it was sometime in the summer 2018. I went through that chaotic period of figuring out like what's the new thing. Like, I mean, I'm like on my whiteboard, just like a madman writing out ideas. And I think I had some like T-shirt idea that I was like, I keep going to these T-shirt businesses because I love T-shirts. And it's like, eventually it's going to happen. I'm going to have a T-shirt store at some point. It just hasn't happened yet. But anyway, what had come to my, like the thing that I wanted to do and what I was going to do in special events was I was going to build a software. I was going to get into SaaS. In fact, I was trying to be, that's when I discovered ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to be the Russell Brunson of the special events industry and build this software. And I was writing a book called Event Pro Systems that teaches you how, because the thing that was different for me is that I was a business owner in the special events industry that lived 3 hours from the business, which was very like uncommon to find in that industry. Yeah. Wow. So I ended up like, I was like, Special Event Magazine picked me up as the top 1,000 event professionals in the country. I got ranked in, what was it? No, I'm sorry. It was BizBash. I got ranked in BizBash for that. And then Special Event Magazine picked me up for that too. It's like some notable things because of that particular situation that was like very rare to find. Well, this is what happened, man. Like I started in this huge software project. I was writing this book. I never had published, like barely made a post on Facebook.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like I was building like a maniac. I was building the software, like spending all this money. And then it was May of 2019. So it was almost a year later. I was like, all right, well, I feel like I'm at a point right now where I can launch something. And I guess means that I have to start publishing. This means that I'm starting to go on podcasts. And now I've got to be this thought leader, like in this industry that I didn't realize that I just didn't care about anymore. And when it came time to publish, I felt all this resistance. And I thought at first, well, you know what? I'm new. Like, yeah, there's going to be resistance, right? When you're new at something, you're going to feel resistance. And so I'm just going to accept it and just keep with it. And then 5 months later, it just didn't go away. Like I just kept feeling like nothing was clicking. And I was about 60 grand into this project. Wow. And I don't know how many hours of time. And I realized that I made a mistake and was building a business that I was building the wrong business is really what I was doing. Yeah. And I just had to read the writing on the wall. And it was October 2019. And I decided to shelf the entire project and start over. And that was a really scary thing to do because there was a lot of money involved and a lot of time involved. I spent over a year working on this, and it was a very liberating feeling as much as it was scary at the same time. Yeah. And so at that point, I just really got obsessed with clarity, like finding clarity in your journey and in your mission and how you serve. And I'm just going to start there. And then from there, I'm going to kind of grow into this next mission. And about, since that was October 2019 leading up to now, I made, a few more pivotal points, through the journey. I had a couple ideas and really developed a nice foundation of learning how to kind of bring clarity to your vision that starts with the core purpose of how you want to serve.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many points there. First, I want to start with the T-shirts, because we actually did the T-shirt thing when we first started. Whoa. I mean, my only, opinion would be don't do the screen printing yourself, man. Either get out the printer or something. Man, we struggled. It was that. I mean, we tell that story in a few other episodes, but it was rough. And actually, these shirts that we're wearing right now, we made, and this is the last memory of that. So going back to not enjoying what you're doing, right? We weren't enjoying it, and we had to pivot. We're like, okay, let's do something else. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah. And what I found super exciting is that topic on you spend this whole year studying, right? Diving deep, building, and then you're like, okay, I need to publish now. I guess I got to launch. I need to publish. And then you found this resistance. Yeah. So I have two questions here. First is, do you think the resistance went away, or do you still get the resistance, right? If you do, how do you deal with that? And then what is your advice, I guess, on, not your advice. I want to see your point of view on publishing now, right? Because before, in that story that you told, I'm getting the sense of publishing as a tool, as an immediate tool for reaching people, right? So I wonder if you have a different point of view about publishing right now.
Man, you asking me those questions gets me so excited. This is a topic I love talking about with publishing and the fear and the resistance and because I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not. I'm very introverted, and even I always tell the story when I was in kindergarten, I was so backwardly shy that my kindergarten teacher called my mom on the day I let her tie my shoes. She was like, "You'll never believe what Jake let me do today. He let me tie his shoes." And so my mom, when she was like, "You're doing what?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a podcast. I got a radio show." She's like,
"Amazing."
She's like, "I've got to call your kindergarten teacher because she would never believe it." So I but it was something, it's just who I am. I'm definitely an introvert. And I think when you get started, there's going to be this fear of almost you criticize yourself, you become your own worst critic, and you overthink about how you're perceived to the people you're speaking to. And that was definitely what I was experiencing. And I remember, dude, this will make you laugh as podcasters. Like my first podcast I went on, I literally, I first off, I said, these are the questions I want you to ask me. I told him the questions I want him to ask me. And then I went and typed out my responses to the questions and had the piece of paper beside me, like I was going to read them off or something.
Oh, no.
And then I never even touched the piece of paper when we started. I don't even remember what the questions were, but that's how scared I was about publishing. Yeah. Because to the point where I'm like writing out my answers and like memorizing them, which is a terrible idea. And so anyway, what has happened, to answer your first question, like now, no, I don't at all. I used to like think about the idea of going live on Facebook, and I remember it would terrify me. But then I hit record, or hit live, not record, but hit the live button, and I started talking, and I realized like, this isn't so bad. And it's okay to screw up a little bit. It's okay to trip over your words a little bit. Yeah. And it's all like, I always go back to, I don't know if y'all study any stoicism or not, but I always think about the Seneca the Elder quote, we suffer more from imagination than we do in reality. Yes. And when I think of publishing, it's just, that quote really speaks to that so well, because in our imagination, we think it's like I've got, I don't know, whatever, 3,000 or 4,000 friends on my Facebook profile. And I feel like when I hit live, like initially I'm thinking like 4,000 people are like watching me like speak, criticizing everything I'm saying. And it's like I'm walking on some stage and there's 4,000 people watching me. But really, that's just not true. That's not really how it is. Yeah. And the fact is that, and this is the other thing too, and I want to give you a piece of advice, and the listeners a piece of advice here about publishing that really helped me kind of break through that fear. Absolutely. The first thing is, well, actually it's two things. The first one is you just got to start. Don't overthink it, and just hit start and speak. And people love that authenticity. People love the realness about you, and just let you shine and love that, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that. That's the first thing. Just kind of keep that in mind. But the second thing is, I really flip the lens around and think about the people I'm serving, right? That's really what it's about. It's not about whether or not I say ums or my ahs or you knows or whatever, too much, or maybe my head's a little bit too shiny for the camera right now, or whatever the thing is that you're criticizing yourself for. That doesn't matter at all. Yeah. It's about the message you're putting out to people, and you never know who could be listening to that message, and you never know if that message or how that message could impact our life in a very positive way. And it just takes one statement, right? It was like that statement I just said to you about Seneca the Elder. We suffer more from imagination than we do in reality. Yeah.
So, Jake, like that was. Sorry, you continue, please, because this is amazing. Yes.
Oh no! All I was going to say is the last thing here. The last pillar is to celebrate your growth. So in my podcast, like episode 6, I call it the look back of transformation. And it's a solo episode I did. And what happened was episodes 2 through 5, I recorded those like a month, like back in June. It was the interviews. And then episodes 7 and 8 were interviews I recently recorded about a week before I started editing. And I remember I was listening. Now I've outsourced it actually to Corey and Ron for the podcast stuff. But like at the time I was doing my own editing, and I was listening to myself, and I was like, man, I can definitely tell a difference between how I sound and my energy between the first 4 episodes and the last 2 that I just recorded. Yeah. And normally, like, I feel like the old me would be like criticizing myself, like, gosh, how could you sound? And it's not that I sounded bad, but I could tell that energy change, that difference in energy. Yeah. And you might want to feel hesitant to release those because you feel like you don't sound perfect or whatever. But instead, I was like, you know what? This is something to celebrate. This is growth, right? Like, I can't wait to episode 100 to look at 100 as compared to episode 7 or 2 or 3, right? Or episode 1000 and compare that to episode 2. And you're documenting the transformational journey through your podcast and through your publishing. You can go back and hear how you were years ago, and you can see the transformation. There's just something beautiful about that I think is something to think about, to get excited about.
Yeah, dude, Jake, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. For those listening right now, go watch the video, because Fonzie's and my face are like two huge smiles because this is exactly what we talk about every single day, and it's just like facing your fear through the publishing, right? Like it's incredible the growth journey that everybody can be on, and I'm so thankful and grateful that you are on that path too with your own stuff and discovering that, especially after having, you know, the success that you had with your other companies and pivoting and like learning and doing this thing, and you know, and that's okay, that's part of the journey. The cool thing is like now you have a audience, people that help you, relationships, you know, joint ventures, team members like that support you and support you on your journey, how you are. You know, you said a couple of things here that well, especially, you know, we suffer more from the imagination that than we do from the reality, and that's fact. Like we tell ourselves like these crazy stories, right, that feed our fear, and then it like it makes us perception, exactly. So you know, I want to share a quick story here. I remember when I was like, you know, clearly we have also an accent. We're not from Virginia, but we're from Venezuela. And our English is not very good looking, but that's okay. And I remember being on a speech class in college, right? This is like, what, 5-6 years ago. So my accent was still like thicker, right? And they're like, hey, you just gotta talk out there in front of the class, and you gotta share a story about your country. You gotta share something about your country, right? So I'm like, oh, easy, sweet. So, you know, I know a bunch of stuff about my country, so I'm not even gonna research. So I put some pictures up there, and then I went on and started speaking. And the professor was sitting there, and they had somebody count all the hums and the ahs and all this stuff. Count them, right? Like that was the specific job of this person. And so one student goes in, they count, you know, oh, well, you said, you know, in 3 minutes, you said it 10 times. In 3 minutes, you said it 2 times and whatever, right? So that was kind of like the focus of the thing. I'm like, oh man, I think I'm going to crush this. I never say some ahs or whatever. Like, I don't think so. Well, I say my 3-minute speech and then I come back and the teacher, like, because of the energy was up, because, you know, naturally I think like that's an environment that we love being in. So, but I did say some hums and ahs, right? And I could tell by the face of the students that they were kind of shocked and that they thought I was going to fail that stuff. And the student's like, you want to know how many you said? And I'm like, go ahead, say it. You said 100 in 3 minutes. And I'm like, what? After that, I was not able to talk in public. I was like, my subconscious was like, holy crap, like I'm not gonna be able to be like in front of a camera anymore, right? So those things like feed up your fear inside of you when you're about to publish. But guess what? The only way to break it is like you said, it's like, hey, go do it. And then as you get better, go celebrate that, which I thought it was incredible, man. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. I think we need to celebrate a little bit more.
Yeah, we do need to throw some parties for sure.
Yes.
But, you know, like, I love that. And to tie that, what my brother just said here, you know, when you listen to those type of stuff that people are saying, hey, if you say ums and ahs, all that, you know, you're not being a good public speaker. Like, don't get into your head, right? Because at the end of the day, like, some people are going to like you and then some people are not going to like you, right? Like that's 100% normal. Not always 100% of people are going to like you. And I think it's super important for people to understand that it's not our job to make other people feel a certain way, right? All we can control is ourselves, our actions, the way we speak, right? I mean, if you want to stop saying ums and all that stuff, okay, maybe just go in front of the mirror and practice it, whatever you want to do. But I think it gets to a point where you're like, you know what? Like, this is me, and that's totally fine. It's totally fine if I say it, right? And eventually when you remove yourself from what is the other person thinking about me, right? What if I say so many ums? Like, what are they going to think about me? If you remove yourself from that, that resistance is going to lower because now it's not your responsibility. You cannot control how other people are going to feel about what you're talking about. So that's my tip. My advice for people is really don't care that much about what other people are going to feel after you talk. Of course, care about your audience and you know, like you said, right? Like, what is my audience want to hear? What do they want to hear? And that's obviously part of the whole strategy. But on how you make them feel, how they feel from listening to you, you gotta separate that feeling because it's gonna do you no good. And you know what? Like you said that you don't feel any resistance. I'm surprised. I honestly thought you were gonna say you still felt resistance, right? And that's my personal experience. Like, I mean, this is episode 77, and I still feel resistance sometimes, right? The thing is, like, now we've trained our body and our mind to take action regardless of the resistance. We're like, hey, it's okay. We look resistant in the face, put some boxing gloves, you know, bam, bam, punch each other in the face a little bit, and then we go and do it. And it's totally okay, right? Yeah. So I'm thankful, I guess. And I'm thankful for you sharing that, like, you don't feel that way either, you know, because now I can see, like, both sides of the spectrum, I guess.
Yeah. So, Jake, you mentioned something really, really important, right? Like, we struggled with that for a long time when we first started, like, our services with the agency and so on. It's like, it's all about the who I'm serving. So I have a question before we go into the last couple of them that we have for the show. It's like, how do you find that who? Because you came from an industry and then completely pivoted into something a little bit different. So are you still in the process of finding that who? Like, what are some of the things that you actually did to actually find that right audience? Let's dive into that.
You know, and I think the question of the who and who your avatar is a question that once upon a time used to kind of paralyze me a little bit in progress, because I would get so caught up into the details of who this person was that I was like I felt like I was forcing things to work. So the change that I had made, and there's a couple things that I have shifted, I guess, in my perception or my approach to, like, finding the who, that I feel like is working pretty well for me so far. At least so far it is. Is the first thing is having just a general understanding of, like, the market you want to serve, right? Like, is it entrepreneurs? Is it, financial advisors? Is it, people in the weight loss market? Like, where do you want, like, just starting there first, right? And then you start kind of, like, diving in deeper and deeper. But the thing, the biggest thing I go in after that is, like, for me, it's like, okay, entrepreneurs, perfect. That's still way too broad, obviously. But what I really look for are impact-driven entrepreneurs, right? People who are looking to make an impact with building a movement. People who are looking to really just shine their light and really help as many people as they can, using, like, by leveraging the internet, by leveraging what we have online, because that to me is so fascinating that we can. And I can't remember. I couldn't remember exactly where y'all are from. Like, where do y'all live now? But, like, I'm in Virginia. Yeah. And
in Florida.
What's that?
Florida. Hot and humid Florida.
Florida. Okay, Florida. Got you. My dad lived in Clearwater for 10 years. So I actually got married in Florida.
Oh, sweet. There you go.
Florida. I'm in Virginia. And, there's people all over the world. And, like, I've got a client right now who lives in London. And you've got all these connections are crazy. So, like, you have a drive to make impact with people all over the world with your message and how you serve. So that's kind of like, okay, well, let's start there. Like, I have that general idea, right? But then the next kind of level below that is something, and actually I don't see this often taught in kind of thinking your avatar, but this is something I learned just through my own business, is establishing that foundation of core values. But making that part of your who, right? Because this is the thing, when it comes to people you work with on a client, as a client level, customer level, the best relationships are people who have someone with your value system and what you believe is important, what you fundamentally view as right and wrong, and, like, you're, like, just the priorities that you have and that system of values. So I always look for similarities and values, especially if you're working on a private level with somebody and it's a very intimate relationship in business. But then below that, you start to, like, learn who you attract, right? You start seeing being yourself, don't worry about, just be yourself, and, like, think of yourself as just this magnet, right? Some people you're going to repel, some people you're going to attract, right? And just have awareness, like, who are the people who I tend to repel versus the people who I tend to attract. And then you start recording patterns of similarities of characteristics of people as you're attracting them into your world. It's like, wow, it seems like I think I attract a lot of parents because I'm a dad, and people relate to me in that capacity. So I might want to think about my content a little bit as about being somebody who is a family man and presenting that, because that's going to attract that kind of avatar. We get each other. We understand, like, what that lifestyle is like as an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely.
So you start kind of digging down. But I think instead of just sitting back and, like, trying to, like, map that out let the action of serving reveal your who. Right? Have a general understanding, but let the action of serving reveal the who.
Dude, that's awesome. I like that last phrase right there. Describe my thought throughout this whole part of the conversation, which was that I was like, you know, like we started too with the same, you know, sheet that it says, who's your who? Where does it consume their information? Where do they go? Where do they do this? Right? And like, when you don't even have a business, I'm like, okay, I don't know, right? So I like the way you put it, that it's like, at least know the market first, then is it people that align with your core values? Cool, because if they don't, probably you're going to have a rough time. And then like through action, and that's for us, that has been consistent publishing, right? Like we have been putting our message out there, and that's the action that leads people to say, wow, I like these guys, right? And I like what they do. Let me come in and reach out and work with them, right? And as you start working with people, then you probably are gonna be able to better fill up that sheet that says who's your dream customer, how do they look like, and all that stuff they do, right? Yeah. But I think it's so honestly very challenging at first to put. I mean, you can put anybody in there literally, but you don't really know if they're your dream customers because you haven't had a dream customer yet.
Yeah, right. I love it.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. I mean, the last thing, you know, let the action of serving reveal your who. That's so powerful.
Just so you know, that's gonna be a quote for sure. Posted everywhere. Yeah,
beautiful. So yes, I love how you frame it, because I think it's the first time that we actually see it that way. And you know, as you were explaining, like Fonzie was saying, we understood that for us, that was consistent publishing, you know, for you, or consistent publishing and starting to serve these clients that turn out to be dream clients. And then you're like, okay, how can I find another one of you? And then if it's somebody that you don't really enjoy working with, or there's a lot of friction, it's like, hey, you know, maybe this is not the right thing for both of us at the moment. We're still friends, you know, but I need to fire you as a client, and then, go find that right person. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Jake, 2 last questions. I know we have to wrap up very soon. So quick action point for somebody that is starting to, you know, move forward. Like, what can they do to actually move the needle in their business? What is something that you would like to share as a quick actionable thing that they can do today?
So you often hear the term, you got to take action. You got to take action, right? And this I think ties in with a lot of what we're talking about just from this whole interview. But I always suggest that you should take action with people, right? So what I mean by that specifically is, one of the best things you can do if you're just getting started is stop, like get out of this like place of solitude behind a computer screen and go find people, like connect on a podcast, like get on calls with people and just help serve. Like that right there is, you'll find quicker traction. The other thing too is, when you do come out with an offer, that person who you just helped, they're going to remember that time when you served them and helped them, and it gives you clarity. And so the biggest mistake I think a lot of entrepreneurs make is that they try to guess at what people want and how people want to be served, rather than letting them tell you how they want to be served.
Yes.
And the only way to really learn that is to take action, but to take action with people and to actually get out there with people. So that's why like human connection and relationships is a big part of the foundation of how I serve, because I know that if you can master relationships and be able to build those connection points, not only with customers, but with people you're on podcasts with, or people that you're partnering up with, or employees or staff. Like in business, it's nothing but relationships with all these different types of people. So you have to learn how to take action with people. So if you really want to get moving quickly, that's where you start.
Wow, that was amazing. And you know, like we testified to that because our business started growing once we started taking action with people, once we started building relationships with other people, you know, having these conversations in the podcast and being curious, because that's the only way you're gonna really. That was amazing.
Sweet, man. Well, Jake, where will you be, right? Because I mean, I think this is a good question, and I think maybe we answer it through the episode, but I want your answer now again. Where will you?
I want your answer now
again. Where will you be if you did not publish?
Oh man, phew. That's like that's a deep question right there. Let me think here. If I didn't publish, I definitely wouldn't. I feel like if I wasn't publishing, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Wouldn't be in the online space. I'd probably still be in the brick and mortar space, because in brick and mortar space, I didn't publish. I barely even touched my Facebook page.
Yeah.
I just went out to networking events and networked, and that's what I did. And I probably would still be in a job. You know, I probably would be out of this business. Probably would have went to a job, and that's where I would be. I definitely don't think that, like, it is so much fun to like. This is like my wife thinks I'm working right now. Right? Like, she thinks I'm working right now. I'm like, honestly, it's like, no, I'm having this awesome conversation right now on this podcast with you guys. But to like, this isn't work. Is this work? Like, really? Like, I'm pinching myself. Like, this isn't work. But if I didn't start publishing, this kind of thing wouldn't be possible, right? Yeah. Having this type of lifestyle wouldn't be possible. So I wouldn't be in the zone of happiness. And it's a transitional phase right now for me, but I'm starting to see the momentum and where this is going. And without publishing, this wouldn't be possible.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing with that. I totally relate with the wife comment, because, you know, I come home with a massive smile and she's like, what were you doing today? Like, were you guys actually working? And we're like, I mean, we call it work, but we should start calling it a different thing, because we actually have a ton of fun doing this thing. And funny, I actually just got a phone call right before the show, and she's like, you know, can you come and stop by and walk the dogs? I'm like, babe, like, I have all these like calls scheduled till like 8 p.m. because you told me to stay away because you have a girls' night. And I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to walk the dogs. And she's like, do you actually gonna work? And I'm like, you know, it is work. You know, it's just what it is.
It's just fun. It's some fun work.
And I can say this because, you know, she doesn't listen to the show, so that's fine. It stays between us, you know. Oh man, no, it's okay. It's okay. We love it. Yeah, dude, Jake, how can we connect with you? Where can people find you? If people from the audience want to find you and connect with you, and you just have a chat, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best place to connect with me is in my Facebook group. It's called the Core Collective, and it's just www.growmycore.com, and that's a little vanity URL I got connected to the Facebook group. I'm doing like monthly mastermind events in there, and
is it growmycore.com?
Yeah, it's GROWMY and then CORE. So growmycore.com, and it's called the Core Collective. So when you see that, that's what it is. And honestly, like the group, like I'm like my goal in there is about connections. So we're doing like hot seat rooms. We're doing these monthly mastermind connection calls where we get, like, my goal is to get 1,000 people on a Zoom call to do these connection events. And it sounds crazy, but there's like a method to the madness. So if you want to like build some connections with myself and really in that community, I'd love to have you over there. So
that's exciting. Yeah, thank you. Thank you
for the invite. I'm sure like we will be hitting that link and joining you guys over there.
And we encourage everybody that is either watching or listening to go right now to growmycore.com and obviously join the group.
Yes, we're also going to leave it right in the description, in the links, all the links and the stuff where you're supposed to leave them. So, yeah, team, thank you. Dude, Jay, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking some time of your day and coming and chatting with us and teaching us. I encourage everybody to go listen to your podcast as well. So we're going to leave the links right here as well. The
introspective podcast, right?
The introspective podcast.
Beautiful.
There we go. Love it.
Yes, the introspective podcast.
Awesome.
I always bring my singing voice when I say my podcast now.
Yeah, that's something we've been talking about. We're like, we need to come up with some Content is Profit jingles, right? So I'm learning how to play the guitar literally just so I can sing some jingles here live in Content is Profit.
So man, love it. That day I won't be around. I'll be,
Hey,
outside.
It's okay, Jake. I'll bring you on and we'll sing together.
Sweet.
Dude, I'm with you, man. Let me know.
Awesome, guys. Well, Jake, don't leave. We have to say bye to the Facebook audience. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe. Actually, go ahead and subscribe. Hit smash it. What happened today, Luisa? And don't forget to follow us on social media at BizVersco.
That is right, guys. And if you find this episode impactful, please don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you, guys.
Bye.